be taking that as soon as it happens here for you right here. But I want to go and continue, obviously, to talk about this whole crisis that we are seeing right now and bring in a special guest, a friend here of Live Now from Fox, Jacob Lassin, ASU Russian Studies Scholar. Thank you so much again for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. And unfortunately, we were talking earlier this week, and it's just something how fast 24 hours can change things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again for having me. This is obviously the worst case scenario that we were thinking of, and unfortunately it's come to pass.
Yeah, so I first want to get your take here, because you were just recently in Moscow, and what was your take when you, last night here, Arizona time, what were you thinking when you saw the images happening there in Ukraine?
It's just remarkable how quickly things have deteriorated. As I mentioned last time we spoke, for the majority of the time that I was in Russia, people were saying that it was all kind of bluster, that this wasn't going to happen. There was no way an invasion would happen. And then to see those images, to see Russian troops moving very quickly across Ukraine, not just in the Donbass region, but throughout the country, and there being attacks throughout the country, then it's definitely become a full-scale invasion, and there's no way around it. Putin may be obfuscating by saying things like, "Oh, it's just a military action. They're only targeting military targets," but that's obviously not true.
Yeah. I mean, we can't listen to really anything that he says, because he was saying we're not going to invade. We're not going to invade. Now they have the invasion, and now it looks like they are really centered and really want to go full on to the capital.
Yeah, it's a very tragic situation. This is going to cause a huge loss of life potentially. There's a huge humanitarian disaster. There's already a very large population of internally displaced peoples and refugees within Ukraine and beyond. And, this has the potential to, make that on the scale, many, many times worse, on a scale many, many times worse.
And what do you think the Ukrainian forces will do? Will they be putting up much of a fight here, or I mean, what's going to happen? Because we know the numbers are unfortunately on the side of the Russians.
So the Ukrainian army has been fighting back. There's been, I think, a little bit of odd optimism on Putin's part that, and this is probably a result of him being very insulated and having a kind of team of yes men around him, that this idea that, the Ukrainian military would immediately put down their arms and surrender once Russian troops moved in. We're not seeing that at all. The Ukrainian military and the Ukrainian people are very proud and very much, want to defend their country. And so, I believe that the Ukrainian military will continue to fight back as much as possible going forward.
Yeah, that's what we all want there, to give some sort of fight and hope for the very best for all of the Ukrainians right now. But, this is coming at such a time where you're seeing these images and they just seem so surreal at first, because, I mean, we're looking at the biggest invasion since '45 in Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. Surreal is absolutely the correct word as well. Even when Russia first, invaded in 2014 and annexed Crimea, it was already a very surreal moment. And we've been in a kind of, frozen stasis almost. Obviously, people have still been fighting, and there's still been conflict. But it hasn't been, of course, this hot, this dangerous as it is right now. And now we're seeing just absolutely the worst case scenario.
And we're going to be hearing from President Biden here in less than 30 minutes. What do you want to hear from the president when it comes to these actions that Russia has taken now?
I want to hear, probably the strictest and strongest sanctions that we could possibly muster. I was listening a little bit to the UK parliamentary debate that you had on just before, and it's good that the United Kingdom is freezing all Russian bank assets. But I think that we need to go, perhaps even farther. I think that cutting Russia off from SWIFT, the international payment system that runs through US dollars, is an essential move at this point, because the really, as we've seen before, other sanctions, other attempts at deterrence have not fully worked, and so we need to take the strictest possible ones that are available, short of military deployments.
Absolutely there. And what do you think? I mean, at the end of the day, when we're going to hear President Biden talk about these sanctions, these new tranches that will be released, but at the end of the day, is it going to impact Putin right now in this moment that he's in, or is this going to be taking maybe weeks or months to even hit, Russia assets?
That's the important question. We saw also in the UK parliamentary debate about some members of parliament asking Boris Johnson to speed up the process, because obviously these are very complicated, complex issues, and they take some time to work out. But time is of the essence. The longer that things drag on, the worse the situation is going to become, unfortunately. And so being able to move swiftly, as swiftly as possible, being able to actually get this the economic impact in place is really what needs to happen right away. Another action that I think might be appropriate in this case is for most Western countries to simply cut off Russia from diplomatic relations. Being able to isolate them both economically and then diplomatically is going to be the way forward if we really are serious about stopping this conflict. Russia cannot be a regular member of the international community right now.
And what do you think the change in Putin within the last 18 months, where is this coming from? And did he look at the world scale and maybe look at some of the things that we are seeing really across the world, maybe looking at leaders and saying, you know what, I think I got a pretty good grasp on this. I don't think, with everyone's problems all around the world, it seems like they can't even, here in our country, we can't even really come together for sanctions for Russia in the very beginning. Remember when they got tied up in the Capitol? So is he looking at this stuff like, now's the time to pounce?
It's hard to say exactly, what has really triggered this on Putin's part. What we have seen in his recent speeches, it's an almost paranoid obsession with what is happening. How he sees kind of the state of world affairs, and what he wants to do in Ukraine. And so I think you absolutely have a point there, that there is kind of this idea that the world community is really fractured, that COVID response has taken up so much energy and time, so that it's very difficult, and that he does have an opportunity here. And there's also just this aspect of kind of wanting to make his kind of imperial move, wanting to be able to put his stamp on things, and seeing that this is kind of an opportunity to do so.
Very, very good point there. And I also want to just talk about, we see the different types of things that are happening right now in and around Kyiv. There's even reporting out there from Jennifer Griffin of Fox News. The airbase just 45 minutes outside of Kyiv is being taken over right now by Russian forces. When if they do take over the capital, what is their ultimate goal? Is it to overthrow the government? And what's going to happen next then?
I think yes. I think overthrowing the government would be, if they do take Kyiv, would be the ultimate goal there. In Putin's speech last night, for instance, he reiterated this talking point that the Ukrainian government has come to power via sham elections, via a coup that was backed by the West. Right. So this is all part of his rhetorical strategy, not based in reality at all, of course, but is part of kind of what he has been saying. And so the idea would be then basically to install a friendly government to Russia. About territorial takeover, I'm not exactly sure, but that does seem to be kind of the ultimate goal here.
And Jacob, you watched Putin, his address this morning. What was it like, and what did he say, and maybe what was his demeanor like?
So it's a very interesting question. Some journalists have determined that actually the message was recorded Monday, probably right after his earlier speech that we saw, where he talked about recognizing the People's Republics of Donetsk and Luhansk. So the fact that it was already pre-recorded is a kind of bizarre aspect to all of this. As for his, demeanor and his and what he was saying, it was a litany of grievances. It was really, just going through all of the different rhetorical points about, how NATO is trying to expand and infringe upon Russian sovereignty, how NATO overstepped its bounds by sending military action into former Yugoslavia in the 1990s. All of these different issues that Putin's talked about for years and years and years, all coming together in a kind of full bloom of why now and why it's time to move into Ukraine now, according to him. And the other issue that he keeps talking about is this idea of denazification. And yes, there's there are far right neo-Nazi groups in Ukraine, just as there are in Russia, just as there are here in the United States. And so it becomes this kind of nostalgic World War II-esque narrative that what Putin is doing here is kind of finishing the work of World War II, and so we see this very unhinged view of history and reality.
And can you just give us also a grasp of, for Russian life and for the people that are in Russia right now, what type of news are they getting and what kind of information is being put in front of them to really talk about all this?
So, all the state news channels are basically just repeating the Putin talking points. Yesterday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky gave a speech which was actually mostly in Russian and directed towards the Russian people. He noted in it that he knew that it wouldn't be broadcast on Russian television, but through independent media sources, through the internet, hoping to talk to people that way. What I'm heartened to see is that there have been protests starting in various Russian cities across the country, and the police have been responding very swiftly to them. People are being arrested. The police are trying to break up these protests, but hopefully we see more and more of the Russian people coming out, because there isn't a real, I think, desire to see this at all among the average Russian person. Lots of Russians have family, friends in Ukraine. They've worked, they've lived, they studied in Ukraine. It's unconscionable to most of them that now all of a sudden Russia would have be moving in to invade and take over.
Yeah, I can't just imagine what it is for these Ukrainians to see these Russian helicopters in their homeland and in their own space, and for so many of them that are fleeing their homes and not knowing that when they leave their home, will they have a home to come back to? It must be such a horrible experience. I mean, the war, any way you look at it, is just horrible in so many facets.
Yeah, absolutely. From what I've seen from Ukrainians in various cities, people are trying to stay calm. Obviously, some are planning on leaving, and we see Ukrainians hiding out in the metro system, for instance, to avoid bombs. It's just truly a tragedy unfolding before our eyes, and it's really, I can't say it enough, just the worst possible case scenario.
It really is. Jacob, any closing remarks or thoughts as we get ready for President Biden coming up, and then in a little bit I'll go back to the UK Parliament as well as they discuss all their sanctions as well. But any closing thoughts that you have on this horrible tragedy that we're unfortunately seeing in real time?
I think that the one thing I want to get across is that this is an unprovoked aggression from Russia. And our thoughts should be, and our thoughts and our support should be with the Ukrainian people in all ways that we can, be that accepting refugees, be that through military or financial support, and be that through sanctions and other diplomatic means.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Jacob Lassin, thank you so much for coming back on and really talking about and giving us so much insight on Russia and everything that is happening, unfolding right now in the world. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
No problem. All right, everyone. You're watching Live Now from Fox, everyone. Appreciate you joining us here as we continue to bring you the top stories and headlines. And, of course, it's all about Russia, Ukraine. And we are just about 15 minutes away from